welcome to another episode of the Flag Stays Down podcast, Daylight Savings Edition. Boys, we're recording an hour later, but not really this week, so congratulations on that. And we had a win, so who knows? Matt, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain too much. Actually, it was two wins if I remember correctly this week. So we haven't had that for a while. So it's been a good week. Just staying busy with stuff. Finally enjoying some nice weather, which has been delightful. Today I think we got up to what was it, like 56, 57, something like that. So got to spend some time outside today, watching some golf, and just doing some stuff out there, trying to clean up my garage a little bit and do some house projects and whatnot. So yeah, can't complain. It was a good day, good weekend, and we're here. We're here on two victories. So didn't know if I would ever have the chance to say that again, but here we are. Parks, how are you?
I'm gonna be that guy just to be a dick, Matt. We have one win and one winning because it's only half of the two legs there. So we
I'm going to be a dick and say we're on a win streak. That's three in a row.
you can take it, but we haven't won the match yet. We've won half the match. So we're winning at halftime and against Copenhagen, and Copenhagen can still go on. I hope they don't, right? But that one's still TBD. No, weekend was good, man. Life's good right now, and as I sent pictures to you guys, I got to finally cook my pastrami. So I did that starting last night and did today and sliced into it, and it is salty, meaty goodness, and it is wonderful. So really not much going on in my life though right now. Just trying to keep a kid alive and make sure that the house doesn't blow away and everything's good right now. I'm not traveling for another 3 weeks for work, so enjoying time at home. Like you, Matt, have some nice weather here. We were up to 68 today. It was just absolutely gorgeous and perfect out. So starting to feel like spring and starting to feel just like that winter is not, you always have those like surprise days where it gets really nice and then you think spring is here and then it just kind of comes back and you get winter conditions like a week later. And so we're starting to kind of feel like it's not past the point of no return there. Um, you guys might have a little bit longer to get through it because March can be snowy in Wisconsin and Minnesota, as we all know. Otherwise, life's good. Collins, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. Spent the week down at company HQ, Midwest sales meeting, which man, it was a meeting. We got some good expensive dinners out of it, so I'll take that. So happy to come back, watch Chelsea win this weekend. Went to Highbury for the first time in weeks, since the first time in weeks that we're playing on a weekend, which is something amazing. Um, and found out one of Nicole's coworkers actually part-time bartends at Highbury, so that was a blast too. Um, but no, all other than that, all good stuff. So we, as you guys mentioned, we did have two matches this week. A half win or a full win, depending on how you want to look at it. Uh, and then a 100% certifiable 3 points at the bridge. Parker, where do you want to start?
I mean, we can touch on the Copenhagen game for a minute. It's 2-1 win. Got goals from Reece James and Enzo Fernandez, and then conceded in like the 80th minute or so, which kind of sucked. I was hoping we could just kind of close that one out at 2-0 and go into our home leg up with a 2-goal cushion. I think it's really important because we play Copenhagen at home on Thursday, and then we've got Arsenal on Sunday. So 3-day rest time frame, and I don't know, what we're going to be thinking for squad there. If the first leg against Copenhagen is any kind of indication, it'll be a young squad, which I'm hopeful we kind of continue because I think we need to, put a lot of focus and emphasis on that Arsenal match. I think it's going to be a big one for us.
Well, Parker, let me stop you right there. See, I know you floated the question at one point. Are we taking that competition seriously? You look at the lineup we put out in a knockout phase, where it's what, five youth players.
And somebody's first senior start, right? um, I mean, you look at the result and you think like, they're taking it at least somewhat seriously. I know they made 3 subs at the half to kind of re-bolster that attack. So Levi came in, Enzo came in, and Kunku came in right at halftime, which is nice to see. But you look at the knockout. I'm sorry, you look at the group stage, and the team that played was our very much our A and B team, or our first team, second team, kind of a thought process. Guys like Mudryk were playing, guys like Joao Felix were playing. Um, I believe Neto was our second right winger at that point because what's his name was starting right, who's hurt right now. Um, but our team looked a lot different back then, which it's kind of hard to even think about how different that team looked, where Cole Palmer wasn't even in the squad. Gu was one of the leading scorers of the group phase. He was playing really well. Renato Veiga got a lot of minutes in that time. He's not with us anymore either. So, we kind of have this morphed look of a team now where we don't have a full A and B team anymore, and we kind of have what we have. You look at our bench, and we just don't really have a ton of people that can even like suit up for us at this time. So I think we kind of have to start some youth, and we still have to kind of put an emphasis on the Premier League because I think that's the biggest target right now for us, and I think that's how we need to approach it.
Yeah, I'm looking at the knockouts, and previously in European competition, it would be a draw every single round. Not this year. The quarterfinals and semifinals are set. The only draw will be who plays the home leg first. The only two teams I was worried about in this entire bracket were Copenhagen and Fiorentina. Fiorentina's on the other side of the bracket. We won't have to deal with them until possibly the final. If we can put out a similar lineup, a lot of youth guys against Copenhagen, and just draw, win 1-0, whatever it happens to be, but get through. You're looking at facing Molde from Norway. And then beyond that, you're looking at a team from Cyprus, a team from Sweden, a team from Bosnia, and Rapid Vienna. If they're not taking it seriously, that's fine until you get to the final and you play an actual real team in Fiorentina.
To me, where I'm torn on this is yes, the goal is Champions League, right? I think we're all in that same boat. That's kind of what we want to get to is Champions League. Your surest bet is winning the Conference League. That right now is your easiest path.
That only goes to Europa League, though. And
Like
then you
I
win the
said,
Europa League, then that goes to Champions.
I have my leagues messed up. So, like, either way, like it's still so let me switch that thought. So either way, it's a chance to win silverware, which Chelsea has not done in a very long time. And when I say very long time, I mean since Roman left and with all the turmoil and everything like that. Yes, we won the Champions League in 2021. I get that. But it has been a rough few years. And I think any piece of silverware can go a long way to, I think, smoothing things over as far as where Maresca sits with the fans. No matter how you look at it, winning cures everything. It does. If Maresca's winning, there were no, even look at the beginning of the season, there were no questions. It was just, okay, we're winning. We're second in the table. Hey, look at us. Things go south. Oh, there's a problem. You win some silverware. I think I think that goes a long way. Um, as far as just kind of dealing with those issues that we've had over the last, I would say, month and a half. Um, I'm I'm worried about the lineup that we put out against Copenhagen because that was a brutally boring game to watch. It was very disjointed, and I'm gonna steal a line from one of my favorite movies. We don't have enough talent to win on talent alone. What I mean by that is we can't just say, oh, we're going to start Enzo and Cole Palmer along with a bunch of kids and we'll be fine. No, we're not good enough to do that, even against these lower teams. I don't think Reese expected his goal to go in, to be completely honest. I think it was kind of a half shot. Let's see what happens. It the way that we lined up was very telling of somebody who's okay, we just need to put a team out there and hope that we win. They should on paper, but we're just going to throw something out there and see what happens. I think you have to, I think you almost need to put a little bit more emphasis on that than than what we're showing currently. Group stage, fine. Yes, we can breeze through that. But now you have to win. And I think we need to put out a better lineup than what we did in the first leg.
So, man, I got two follow-up questions for you. Number one, in terms of a trophy smoothing things over, I this isn't so much a question. This is a comment, I guess. You've seen the last two wins in the Premier League. If today, while 1-0 was relatively easy, Leicester never posed a threat, and 4-0 against Southampton. Okay, Parker, there was the one time that Tosin almost headed it in, is playing the crossbar challenge. I get it. But it, 50% of the fan base is still like, oh, you can't win that, right? You can't win beating lesser opposition in the eyes of half the fans in this fan base. This is a whole competition of beating lesser teams. I don't know if this smooths anything over for anyone.
I'll make a very bold statement right now. Chelsea fans in general are very materialistic. We care about trophies. We care about what goes in the trophy cabinet. A trophy's a trophy.
The problem is, I think most fans would, if I had to have you pick and you say we win the conference league and we take seventh, or we take fourth and we lose in the conference league, people say take fourth and lose in the conference league. And we don't know what the outcome of either competition is yet, but that's what most fans would choose. So they would choose top four over a UCL trophy, in my
Sure.
opinion.
I guess the point that I'm saying is I'd like to see a little bit more emphasis put on the conference league than what I saw as far as that lineup goes against Copenhagen. I would like to see a little bit more than just, yeah, we're going to put two of our starters out there and then we'll be fine. We can't. I don't think we can do that. I don't think we're good enough to do that. At least in our current form right now, I don't think we're good enough to do that.
So poses the question, my second follow-up question to you. You got Arsenal on the weekend and you're barely hanging on to fourth place. You've got a 2-point lead over City going into next weekend. So a loss and a City win puts you outside top four. What do you do with the lineup then? I know you said you want a little bit more of a serious lineup, but I feel like you have to choose where you're playing a strong lineup between Copenhagen or Arsenal.
Yeah, I would take the Arsenal lineup, but what I'm saying is we shouldn't be running six kids against Copenhagen. Like we need to make sure that we get through. We're only at a 1 goal advantage. I'm not saying you start our entire A team and have them go back to back. I'm not saying that. I'm saying you need just a little bit more. You need a little bit more veteran presence, or you need a little bit more of that A team in the squad than just 3 players. And let's be honest, we get 5 subs. use them. Like you don't have to run everybody for a full 90. Like just I think it all comes down to how that's managed as well. If you want to run starters or you want to run a bunch of people, fine. Then sub them off, right? That's why we have five subs. Go ahead and do that. I think maybe that would be an approach is you start off stronger, you secure the lead, and then you go full Jose Mourinho and park the bus with some of your kids and then call it.
To be
So
fair, that we did use five subs in the first leg, which was helpful. One was an injury sub, but aside from that,
I think the most important question, who is your A and B team keeper? Who plays against Copenhagen? Who plays against Arsenal?
I don't know that it matters, to be completely honest. I don't think it matters.
So what about the change today? Putting Sanchez back as your Premier League keeper. Anything to that?
No, like I don't give a shit who's in goal. They're both average. They both have their glaring issues, and they both have their positives. Like it doesn't really matter one way or another who's back there. I'm not going to feel comfortable either way.
I think that's fair. I think it's just confusing. Like, and I think Maresca needs some PR training for the English media of just how to answer some of these questions because he's not doing himself any favors by how he's addressing things. Like, I think there's something to be said about consistency and just kind of riding with guys. If they're about equal, then have a cup keeper and have a Premier League keeper and be done with it. And if you need to switch them, then switch them. But like, it feels like there's no consistency now with who's out there, and um, I think that it might come to bite us in the ass a little bit because having a consistent keeper is a big deal with how things get organized and how things get done. And right now, don't think the players know who's going to start in keeper until, the match sheet gets posted the day before or whatever when they talk about it in their meeting. So I think it's a little interesting. It's a little I don't love it. I use the comparison to Collins pre-pod just about quarterbacks, but I think quarterback's a little bit more drastic of a comparison. It's just like usually you pick a guy and you ride with him until something drastically goes wrong. So I don't love the inconsistent nature of our keeper situation.
Yeah, and yeah, you bring up Maresca and the media thing, and I don't know. We've talked about it a couple times. I'm not sold on it. I think it's just coach speak. Most coaches will give you nothing and just say words. What was Marshawn Lynch?
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Yeah, exactly. That's what these
At least that was
coach
honest.
pressers are. Yeah, that's true. But Marshawn Lynch is like a one of one, right? Not everybody's Marshawn Lynch. Um, Matt, I agree with the sentiment that both have their flaws, both are average. I'm good if we ride out with Sanchez as the number one for the rest of the year. Now, Parker, outside of the lunging at the ball, where Tosin eventually had to head it out of play, which then went off the crossbar and would have been the most classic Chelsea own goal ever. I thought he had a good game, and he's a guy who maybe doesn't always make the right decisions, but I can tell that he's confident in what he's doing. And a keeper who's not confident is one of the most dangerous things in football. A keeper who doesn't know where he's supposed to be on the pitch, is unsure of where he needs to be on the pitch, unsure of where a shot's going, unsure of where a pass is going. It's going to lead to all kinds of problems. Sanchez's distribution today, well, not, phenomenal. It wasn't bad. None of his passing led to anything, like anything coming back at him. Go with the guy who's at least confident.
he's confident, but he also has made the most mistakes that have led to goals in the Premier League this year. So, like, double-edged sword. Like, it is what it is. I thought he was fine. I actually thought the part I disagree with more about your statement was I think Sanchez had a good game. I just don't like Leicester actually did threaten us on multiple occasions, um, where I was nervous, where I was holding my breath with crosses that got put into the box and plays that they kind of manufactured. I didn't think it was an easy win for us at all, actually. I thought they were dangerous. I thought that there could have been moments in that game that flipped it pretty easily. So I was not confident in that match until the whistle went.
Yeah, for me, the only other one that comes to mind is the Jamie Vardy from Point Blank, which again, I know that we have a history of you give up one opportunity, you give up one goal. I understand that, and we've all lived through that. But Parker, you're the statistics guy. That there should be a correction there at some point. Of all of a sudden these don't start going. Um, so yeah, one opportunity, no goals. I'll take it. All right. Well, speaking of opportunities to score, this was not so much written down in our pregame, but four shouts for a penalty, one given. How many should have been given?
Two for me. Um, and it's funny because like the way I try to evaluate things now is kind of through the lens of like what's been given prior, because that's precedent of the league. I thought Palmer's the first one should have been given. I if you were to ask me like Parker write the rule book, should that be a given a pen? No, I don't, because I think Cole Palmer initiates that contact, he stops and gets run through, and I don't think that that's in the spirit of what the rule should be. But he did get run through. That's a foul everywhere else, and that consistently gets given as a penalty throughout the league. And so I thought that one was given. I think the one that was given should have been as well. The other two, the handball, I saw nothing there, and I'm trying to remember what the fourth one was. The handball would have been super harsh. He had his back turned and his arm was not definitely not like tucked, but it was pretty close to his body and it hits his elbow. I saw nothing there.
I stopped asking what is a penalty and what isn't a penalty because precedent, Parker, to your point, doesn't mean jack shit. It really doesn't. It's as much as VAR plays a role in this, again, you are at the referee's discretion. It's similar to the NFL. What was the original call, and is there enough to overturn? That's the key deciding factor. If it was called a penalty, was there enough to overturn it? If it wasn't called a penalty, is there enough to overturn that? It's heavily driven based on the initial call. And I think that's kind of where it lies. And the initial call is given in real time by the actual official. So although we do have the ability for replay and everything like that, it is still a subjective call, no matter how you want to look at it. Um, the one on Sancho, even the one on Sancho, I thought was maybe a little meh, just because like there wasn't a ton of contact and the way that Sancho kind of threw himself to the ground. I mean, how many times have we seen that? And it's like, no, there's no, if it wasn't called a penalty, I don't think VAR would have stepped in and said it's a penalty. So I don't know. I still think it's very subjective based on the official. And I don't know if there is really a rhyme, reason, letter of the law type thing anymore. Everything just seems subjective. So I don't know how many penalties should have been given today.
Yeah, and I'm at 2.5. Obviously the Sancho one that Palmer then missed, I thought was one, The one before that, Cole Palmer, I thought that was one. Yeah, he stopped his motion and quote unquote initiated contact, but I mean that's what momentum does, right? Um, the handball, I actually thought was one. I understand that he went up in a natural, the arms were in a natural position, but as he's turning, and I know it's in slow motion makes everything look worse, but it looked to me like he was reaching that back elbow out, that he went from a natural position to whipping that thing out towards the path of the ball. I would have given that one. Uh, and then the fourth one, Pedro Neto in the box. Man, it's like you either give that one or you give the first one. I wouldn't give both, but I can see why they didn't give that one. Pedro Neto, of course, dragging his leg and then getting into the contact. You give one or the other. But yeah, I guess the more I talk about it, three. There should have been three. And Matt, you talk about letter of the law and you talk about inconsistencies and all that. Tim Robinson didn't seem to have a hold on that game to me. There seemed to be a lot of weird calls, non-calls, calls that maybe should have been something else, foul to a yellow. And then there was quite a bit of chippiness that seemed to go unnoticed. But is that down to almost like a VAR mentality of we'll just let it go and then somebody else can clean it up later? I mean, he had Paul Tierney in the booth.
I'll be honest, I had to look at who our head official was because I don't recall seeing him at all this year. I was like, who is this guy? I have no idea. Like, it just didn't occur to me. I just have really never seen him in any of the matches. So I thought he was somebody new. So I was like, okay, we got some new guy. Cool. Um, yeah, I don't know enough about him to know what his matches have kind of looked like. But the the thing we have to remember about Leicester is there is a history with Leicester going back to us, you know, us basically taking N'Golo Kante from them, basically gutting their championship team more or less, right? We took their midfield, we took their left back, we took one of their center backs. So West Fofana. So like we gutted their team. There was the whole issue with what was it Daniel Amarte in the FA Cup where they basically were like shitting all over our whatever it was our the pennant or whatever that we
Flag or whatever it was.
yeah whatever we want to call that after the win and then we played them 3 days later in the Premier League and that game was really chippy. Like there's a history there, so it's kind of like a derby. It's kind of like an unwritten derby, but not really. So I don't know. I mean, I expected the game to be a little bit chippy, and then you throw on Maresca, right? You throw that into the equation, and it's like, okay, like there's enough there for a lot of chippiness to happen. To me, that's something that the head official should know. Like there is a history there. Like things could escalate, things could get, here and there. But Collins, I agree with you. I don't know if there was ever really a full sense of kind of all of that within the match and just the full understanding of how the teams were going to play and how they were kind of be out there on the pitch.
I didn't get a sense of the same level of chippiness, I guess, that you guys picked up on. And I didn't get a sense that the ref was out of control or didn't have a handle on the match. I thought it actually was one of the more free-flowing matches. Not a lot of cards, not a lot of stoppages, not a lot of breakups of, people kind of coming together. So I was kind of happy with how the flow of the match sort of went along. But just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and I guess the big example I have outside of the penalties, because we all know penalties can go either way. Um, Wout Weiss had 5 or 6 rough tackles Couple on Pedro Neto. Actually, those two both bled multiple times during this one. Um, not carded once. And usually, while severity goes into it, as soon as you rack up maybe three, four, your next one's a yellow. I, I wasn't a fan. Daka did the same thing. I'm sure we had some. Moises Caicedo, of course, was all over the place. Um, but you gotta crack the whip at some point. I know Chelsea is a big yellow card team, but there was what, two in this game? Achimpong for a delay of game, and I don't know if the other one would have been, but yeah, no, you got to give a little something. All right, so boys, on top of that, we had some interesting attacking. Pedro Neto at the number 9, Cole Palmer, uh, apparently with vomit and diarrhea the last 48 hours. Only begged Maresca to play this morning. So some interesting choices and interesting outcomes. What do you make of Neto at the 9? And did Cole Palmer have a good game?
Why don't you take one of those, Matt? I'll take the other.
I'll take Neto. I I I like him better up top than I do Nico Jackson. I think Neto is more creative and he's more fluid up top. I think he can I think he has the ability to exploit more. Um, and the fact that he can go out to the left and create, the fact that he can make runs through the middle and kind of all over the place, the fact that that his link up is usually pretty good. I like him in that spot. Definitely a lot better than in Nkunku, and I'm sure we'll touch on that. But um, I think in this moment, I like what he brings to the table. It is a different look, and I think it's a more threatening look than we've had in the past. And then you talk about opening up the possibilities, right? For a decent amount of it, we had I think Sancho was on the right for a little bit. And you have Palmer, so if you need to, like, you can just move different pieces around. I like having that flexibility up top. And I think it takes, I think, some of that pressure off of Cole Palmer to inherently do everything, because when you have somebody like a Neto who's going through the middle, who's making a bunch of runs, I think it definitely helps. We know how he is. He's pretty good on the high press as well. It's just another layer that just helps with creating that dynamic offense that we've been craving for I don't know how long. So I really like him slotted in that number 9, that kind of free flowing number 9 position.
Uh, I'll take the Palmer. No, I don't think Cole Palmer had a good game today. And I don't just, make that decision or make that determination based on the missed penalty, because I don't think it was a bad penalty. It wasn't a perfect penalty, right? It wasn't in the corner, whatever, untouchable, but I think it was a decent penalty. It scores a lot of the time. I think this goalie made a pretty great save. He got down low, forced it out. A couple inches to the right, I think it goes in, and he hits it with pace. So I don't think it was a bad take. I know the announcers were making a big deal about the gamesmanship that the goalie was playing with them. Make it what you will. It was Palmer's first missed or unconverted penalty for Chelsea so far. I don't make a huge deal out of it. And I don't make a huge deal out of this run of form that he's had where he hasn't been scoring or assisting. But that said, I think he was outshined by a lot of players today. I don't think he was our best player. I don't think he was our second best player. He didn't make my top 4 players to put on the poll for man of the match. So I don't think he was in the conversation for man of the match, which is very un Cole Palmer like of him. He had a very uncharacteristic miss, which was a very large miss, where he found himself with some open space on his left foot, and he kind of skies it. It's happened now a couple of times in the past couple of weeks, so those feel uncharacteristic for him. Again, I don't put too much into it. I just don't think that he had a great game. And after learning about his health, and what he had been going through to kind of make it out there, then it starts to explain some of it. But at the end of the day, you go out there and you play a game. That's your job. Your job is to contribute, and so we're going to grade him as if he was healthy because he was out there, right? So he was good enough to play, and he just didn't have his best game. But I just don't think it's anything we need to write home about.
And what was nice is that connecting the two, Pedro Neto kind of covered for him. He kind of filled into that number 10 role, um, a false nine and a 10. He would drop back, he would distribute from there, he would create, he would make runs. Um, and we had so much going on that left hand side. At one point, I don't remember who. I think Caicedo had the ball and was passing a ball out to the left. And within about 3 feet of each other, you had Neto and Kunku and Mark Cucurella. You guys know me, and I love chaos. It was chaos ball out there, and that covered some of the averageness of Cole Palmer. But let me finish with this. Are you worried about Cole Palmer? This is now 9 games without a goal for him.
No, not in the slightest bit. And the reason why is because it's making so I'll flip it this way. We're able to win without Cole Palmer. When was the last time that we've actually said that? We can actually win a match without Cole Palmer doing what he's been doing since he's been at Chelsea. You can look and compare the run of form of Cole Palmer to the success of Chelsea this season, and also look at when the slump started and the slump of Cole Palmer. You can put the two side by side, and it's going to be pretty damn close as far as overlapping. I think the fact that we've been very privileged in the fact that Cole Palmer has been playing out of his mind since he put on a Chelsea shirt. That's what we expect out of him. We expect him to do the things that he has been doing for the last year and a half, 2 years. If he's allowed, right? Like, we even looked at this with Enzo. Like, he played what, half a season with a sports hernia, and we were like, oh, well, that's not what we expect. We saw him play so much better. But okay, that's fine. He was still out there playing. He still had some good matches. I think it's expectation versus reality. And right now, I just see a scenario where Cole Palmer is probably hitting the first funk of his career because he is only, what, 22, something like that. He's hitting his first, first team slump, right? After pretty much carrying the team for a year and a half. I don't see a problem with it. If anything, I think having somebody like a Pedro Neto step up and kind of take that pressure off him, take that load off of him, I think that's what this team has been needing for a long time. And now they don't have an option. Cole Palmer is not in a great run of form. So everybody else has to help pick up the slack that he has been carrying, in my mind, for everybody else. Right? How many times have we said, yep, Cole Palmer, man of the match, Cole Palmer, man of the match, without even thinking about anybody else? It's time that other people started stepping up and helping out so that we can actually do things without him. And I mean that in a good way. Like, if we have a full clicking Cole Palmer and our team is playing like this, where everybody is doing their part, then I think we're very dangerous. But right now, Palmer's not playing well. We're able to get wins. I'm for it. Good. It's about time.
I'll be quick with my point. It's just the fact that I enjoyed how we played today versus especially how we played midweek against Copenhagen. I Copenhagen match was boring, not creative, not a lot of runs, not a lot of overlaps, people trying to take people on one, just not a ton of team play. We had a lot of balls in the box. We had a lot of crosses. We had a lot of second chance balls, headed balls across the face of the goal. We had a lot of good progressive movement, and we had 20 shots. And it's like we've needed like a volume game like this for a while. Uh, I'd much rather prefer this than us have 3 shots looking for the perfect goal and none on target, which we've had a couple of times this year. And that just annoys me. And it feels like, people playing FIFA for that perfect golden goal that you can post on TikTok and get some followers out of it. It's not what we're here to do. We're here to win. And the fact that Palmer wasn't the emphasis was to me great because I don't think he needs to be the emphasis. I think some of the pressure can be spread, like you guys have said. And I liked how we attacked from different angles in this game. We attacked on the right, not as much as I wanted to, but we attacked on the left, we attacked through the middle. People played a big role in kind of having that be distributed. My least favorite brand of Chelsea is when Cole Palmer goes next to Levi Colwell to pick up the ball and try to dribble it through and make something happen. That happens in the 50th minute of a 0-0 game when he gets annoyed and pissed off that nothing's happening and he hasn't touched the ball enough, and then he has to go do that. I hate that. I think that's not progressive. It doesn't do us any good. So this, Cole will score in this system. This isn't an anti Cole Palmer system. If we continue to play like this, he had looks, he had chances. They didn't happen, right? I mean, he had a shot blocked that he was in space for. He had a couple in the box that came bouncing his way, and then the one I mentioned earlier. He'll score goals in this too, so I'm not worried about that. And I think the brand of football is just overall better and more appealing to me.
All right, well, boys, let's close out like we did last week. That's with the grid. We decided we would do one row a week. Last week was beloved players. So great. We came to a conclusion on probably John Terry. Average, Conor Gallagher. Bad, John Obi Mikel. That goes as a podcaster and a player. This week, we've got players who the fans have mixed feelings about. So a great player, an average player, and a bad player. I'm not sure we ever came to a conclusion on what an average player is. So this should be another fun week for us. But boys, what do we think? A great player who the fans had mixed feelings for.
I wrote one down, and I'm not sure if it's the right answer, but it is what I wrote down. Benny Chills. We'll just start the debate and the topic with that.
Well, let me ask you mixed feelings. Outside of me, he seems pretty beloved.
And Maresca.
Fair.
Yeah, I don't think he had a super long tenure. I think he had a high rise and then a kind of a fall off. He's a great player. I think he's one that I scratch my head about a lot just because I think there is a great player there that helped us a lot and do a lot. And then when I didn't see him, here's my barometer. This will be an easy way to say it. Here's my barometer. When he got completely annexed by our team, by Maresca, I was like, meh. Like, I wasn't outraged by it. I wasn't pissed off about it. Like, I was more mad about Conor Gallagher leaving, right? Which is shows you where the belovedness versus the mixed feelingness comes into play for me personally. I didn't see a lot of people talking about it though. Everyone kind of seemed to accept it, which is weird to me. Like it's he was liked, he was loved, he's not anymore. He's in out. People aren't going to call him a legend. People aren't going to call him a flop. To me, it's sort of middle.
Matt, who you got?
So I'm thinking about a couple right now. First one is, and I don't know, we might have to talk about where he goes. David Luiz,
Mm,
depending on which stint at Chelsea you're talking about.
fair, fair.
With Chelsea, very good player. But sometimes you're like, what in the world is going on? Like, is he even good at all? Like, he was just so polarizing in that regard. Like, he would be so good, but then you would just get like, what? Like, really? We have this guy? Um, so he's one for me that I just kind of thought of. Um, and I had another one, I just forgot who it was. I'm sure I'll think of it, but I'm just kind of running through my history book. Oh, Pedro.
Okay, I could see that
I,
one.
I think he was, I don't want to say misunderstood, but I don't think
Underappreciated.
that's a good way to say it. I think he was very underappreciated as far as the quality that he had, what he could bring to the team. Um, but he was a very he was a great player.
I'm gonna throw mine back. Uh, Ian Robin. That was right around when I first started following Chelsea, and he was, you know, just as great as he ended up being at Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. But at the time, there were a lot of those snake labels being thrown out after 06, 07. Uh, it wasn't to the degree of Mason Mount or uh, you know Thibaut Courtois, but there was a decent percentage of the fan base, it seemed, who was not happy with him. But again, I know he kind of predates the timeline that we've been using so far in in this grid. So
I actually I like that shout a lot, actually.
if we had to pull, we'll say Chelsea Twitter because it's a wonderful group. Who do you think would be the great player with mixed feelings selection?
As I was talking about chills, Alonso comes to mind as well because Alonso, when he scored goals, people loved him, and then when he gave up goals, people hated him. I don't know that he's a great player though, so I don't. That's where I get hung up on him.
I've got another left back for that one.
Mark
Uh,
Cucurella?
no, no, for the next sell over of average and mixed. I've got another left back for that one.
Yeah, Alonso was going to be my pick for the average. Um, let's see where we go there before we nail down the great pick. Average player, mixed feelings. Go.
Felipe Luis. Just he's kind of there. He didn't he's like we forget about him, but then we're like, oh yeah, we had him for a while, and then you're just like, eh, okay. Like that's one of the first people that came to my mind was Felipe Luis.
I put Nico Jackson. I went modern. I think he's the definition to me of like split. People love him, love what he does, love his work rate. Um, he came out firing, and there's still people that absolutely despise him. I think he's very divided in the fan base, and I don't think he's great. I don't think he's bad. I think he is right now the body of work. He's average.
No, those are both good shouts. I think we should lean towards Alonso for the great player because I've got another one here that I think fits the definition of average player and very much mixed feelings. That's Kepa Arrizabalaga. You either love him or you hate him, and some of that love is because we don't have anything better. But he went on that streak of winning us penalty shootouts. He filled in for Mendy when he was injured or at AFCON.
And
People loved him, but as soon as he got a little too good, he'd fall back to earth, and everyone hates him.
as soon as someone shot from outside the box.
There it is, right there. So, if we polled all Chelsea fans, what do you think is the pick? Average player, mixed feelings.
I like the Kepa shout.
I don't think people would remember that we had Felipe Luis. That to me is the definition of average. You don't remember that they were even with Chelsea.
I remember that hair.
Yeah, the hair and the headband.
Yeah, it's got to be one of those two.
I
Um,
would lean towards Kepa's the better shout. Nico Jackson is the more today answer.
all right, give mine the bump there. We'll go Kepa. All right, now the fun one. A bad player that yet the fans still had mixed feelings about. A lot of different routes you can go here. I'm gonna go Kai Havertz though. I think I'll start it. I know people say, "Oh yeah, he is a good player. He was just used incorrectly," or "Oh, he's going to be a great player." No, look at his numbers. He's a bad player. At Chelsea, he was a bad player. Um, and yet, like I said, there are those who still think that that was a terrible move, getting rid of him. Um, but you also have people who absolutely despise the man.
The only reason I don't think that that one would get pulled by Chelsea Twitter is because I think anyone who had the mixed feelings after he went to Arsenal and the things he said, I think he burned too many bridges for the mixed feelingsness of him. It's funny. I have two names for you. Timo Werner, so his sidekick in that, because I think people did really like his work rate and he was a bad player for us. The other one that I put here is Edouard Mendy. Hard to call him bad, but he had stretches that were very not good, and he lost the job for lack of better. And he came in, was a flash, and he did some great things, and then feels like just as quick as he came, he ended up leaving and falling out of form and falling off the face of the planet. Like he didn't go to Real Madrid to start his career there and anything. He didn't go to Liverpool. He didn't go anywhere big. He's pretty much done. Like no one talks about him anymore. So I think he's like still somewhat fondly remembered for Chelsea. Uh, but not the best, not our best and brightest.
I didn't even know where he was. I had to
Yeah,
look
he's
it
in.
up.
I actually watched the Saudi game like 2 weeks ago because it was on early in the morning, and I was like, "Oh, Mendy's playing there. Cool." Uh, bad player with mixed feelings. To me, I just try to think of like all of our flops for a category like this. And
So we were talking off air last week, and this is for the bad player hated, but Academy seems to fit into the bad player column quite a bit.
yeah, and I'm trying to think of where Danny Drinkwater fits into this equation. And and so the only reason why I'm leaning towards mixed feelings is because of the fact that we were going to get that midfield engine from Leicester that basically propelled them to a Premier League title. It was Drinks and N'Golo Kante, and we were getting both of them. So there was so much anticipation of slotting those two in, and Drinks just never lived up to it and just absolutely shit the bed.
I'm gonna throw another name into the mix. Ross Barkley,
Bad player, loved. He takes over for John Obi Mikel.
Nigerian Prince.
Oh, man, I feel like we could have just done this block for a whole hour. Um, man, I was gonna vote Drinks, but now I'm kind of on the Ross Barkley train.
The only thing I know is I don't think Kai fits here, just because I think the mixed feelings are out for him. I would eliminate him.
I'm gonna eliminate Mendy. I mean, he had one of the best runs of any Chelsea keeper ever. Um, so if we had to pick between Timo Werner, Danny Drinks, and Ross Barkley, where are we going?
I would say Danny Drinkwater because at least Ross played for Chelsea. He at least saw the pitch.
I just don't know who says anything good about Danny Drinks. Like, I don't have mixed feelings about Danny Drinks. I have not good feelings about Danny Drinks.
Do you have any feelings about Danny Drinks?
Yeah, they're all bad. Like, and it's because we bought a player that didn't play. Like, and I think like, and the funny thing about Ross Barkley is like, I feel like he was in a similar situation where we bought a player that really didn't play, and he was still able to like kind of get some fans out of it. I don't know how he did it. I'm leaning Ross.
I'll go Ross.
I'm fine with that. Let me throw out one more name.
Yes.
Hakeem Ziyech.
Average.
Average player. I would throw him in that C category
He had
or
one,
C3.
to me, he had one good run for like 3 weeks, and that was about it.
That was the original Collins guy.
They're all original Collins guys. Don't try to sneak that one in.
Brown was the original Collins guy.
Still is.
Rom Redemption Tour 2025.
The hated player one is going to be fun. That might just be the whole pod, or it might be a pod after dark special edition issue.
Bring it back. All right.
So do we decide on B3, the great player one? Do we take a vote on that?
On the great player?
Yeah.
No, I think I just wrote in Alonso.
You wrote Alonso because I shouted him. Just I think we need to like go back and figure that out.
All
He
right.
fits in the category, but we still need to isolate it down.
So we had Barkley as bad and mixed feelings. Kepa is average player, mixed feelings. We had voted Chilwell, David Luiz, Pedro, Ian Robin, and Marcus Alonso. Boys, do we need to eliminate anyone from that?
By chills.
I think chills.
All right. So that leaves David Luiz, Pedro, Ian Robin, Marcus Alonso.
I actually really like the Robin shot because out of the list of those players, Robin is the best player. Like he might not go down as a Chelsea great, but he is by far the best player out of all of that lot. That's why I like the shout.
During his time at Chelsea?
No. That's what I'm saying. I don't think he'll go down as a Chelsea great.
Right, but I think what I'm saying is that that's kind of what we're looking at, the scope of their work at Chelsea.
Yeah, that's fair.
So Matt, where would you go then? What would be your vote out of those remaining four?
I mean, personally, I put Alonso in the bad and hated, but again, that's just me because I've never been a fan of Marcus Alonso. So, but putting that aside, to me, I still think David Luiz.
Yeah, I and Robin, I might have been just thinking great player. Yeah, he had 20 goals at Chelsea in all competitions over the 3 years he was here. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't call him a great David Luiz. I mean, we've now named someone else in the Premier League, David Luiz Light or great. What was it? Great value, David
Great
Luiz.
value, David Luiz.
Whereas my family likes to call everything Timu David Luiz. Um, no, I he's one of my favorite players, but there are absolutely people who hate him, and he was great. That's my pick.
David Luiz it is.
David Luiz. All right. So far, great players, beloved. We have John Terry, great player, mixed feeling. We have David Luiz, an average player who was beloved, Conor Gallagher. Mixed feelings was Kepa. Bad player who was beloved, John Obi Mikel. And another Nigerian, Ross Barkley. Noticing a theme,
A
boys.
slightly whiter Nigerian.
Well, that pushes us up against the hour. Any closing thoughts from you two?
Let's have another week like we had. If we walk out of next week with two wins, that means we're through on the conference league and we beat Arsenal. So let's just try to duplicate this. Let's run it back.
We can't landlock ourselves on this grid with another bad player that's Nigerian. That's all I'll say. It's not a good look for the pod.
Ron Redemption Tour and cancel the pod 2025.
Matt, what if we have all of the hated ones be Nigerian? So it's just that whole the whole part of the grid.
Sounds like a challenge.
Cheers, boys.